Are you ready? Yeah. All right. For decades, autism and ADHD were seen as two different planets. You could live on one or the other, but not both. However, in my practice, the research and the stories that I heard from my patients, there are people who live between the two. You might know them. It might be you. These are the people who are not half autistic and half ADHD. They are whole. They are AuDHD. Now, the challenge is that the world is not designed for autism, and it ain't designed for ADHD either. However, when these two conditions comes to rest in the same mind, the systems struggle to recognize those minds. And for that very reason, AuDHD deserves to have its own new paradigm. Now, autism and ADHD co-occur far more than chance. Up to 70% of autistic individuals are diagnosed with ADHD and vice versa. And yet, till 2013, the DSM, which is a diagnostic statistical manual for mental health condition, insisted that they could not coexist. That one rule left generations unrecognized. Children were mislabeled, adults were dismissed, parents were blamed. A mother came to me and said that my son was called lazy and too rigid in a week's time. A 51-year-old man said, I feel that I'm too organized to be ADHD and too disorganized to be autistic. When I explained to him what AuDHD is, he said, so all that time I thought that I was broken or inconsistent, I was different. This happens when people fall between the services. You are too ADHD for autism services, you are too autistic for ADHD services. These people fall between the cracks. Consider AuDHD as an oxymoron, two opposing forces coming together to live in the same mind. Organization versus disorganization, wanting structures but cannot sustain it. Silence versus noise, gravitating towards tranquility but also need constant stimulation. Structure versus chaos. You need your routines, but you get bored of it very easily. Risk-taking versus caution. Autism anchoring you, but ADHD wants more excitement. Repetition versus novelty. You watch the same programs, you eat the same food, and yet unable to have your daily routines. It's like watching Ted Lasso 49 times, and yet seeing brushing your teeth as a side quest. Or is it just me? These are not contradictions of character. These are the autographs or the signatures of AuDHD. And yes, I'm diagnosed with AuDHD. And yes, I'm qualified to diagnose anybody with AuDHD. And apparently, to come onto the stage and demonstrate it to you live. Well, what you have to remember is the AuDHD, it creates its own constellation in 3 different patterns. Autism dominant, structure-loving, detail-seeking, but disruptive by impulses of ADHD. An engineer told me, I love creating beautiful systems, but my ADHD runs through them like a child, scattering papers all around. Secondly, ADHD dominant, where they're full of energy and full of ideas, but gravitated towards precision and perfection, led by autism. A musician said that it feels I have got 2 drummers in my head, one improvising and the other one strictly following the metronome. Boom, boom, boom. And thirdly, the variable type where autism is in the driving force at one time, followed by ADHD. It's like a student telling me, I can do coding in the mornings, but the moment it's afternoon, I lose everything and start 5 new different assignments. These are not strict categories of AuDHD. This is the lens through which you understand that AuDHD is not just a combination of autism and ADHD. It is a dynamic interplay between these two conditions. In the classroom, it might appear brilliance one day and mediocrity the next. In workplaces, excellence coupled with missing details or missing your deadlines. In relationships, it's the emotional overwhelming that collides with impulsive outbursts. But the moment you start using the phrase AuDHD, the whole story changes. From blame to understanding, from being too much to now it makes sense. Recently, I was contacted by a mother from Canada who said my AuDHD work helped her understand her son, Adam. He's a music prodigy. He was a finalist for the BBC Young Musician competition and studied at one of the best musical schools in the country, in the UK. When mother arrived for the final, she spotted Adam at the Cardiff train station. He was wearing baggy clothes, untied shoes, hood up. For the crowd, he might come across as a delinquent, but for the mother, she could see the pianist, silently practicing on the sides, fingers moving magically over imagined keys. He performed beautifully that day, but he lost. And then he disappeared. The mother found him past midnight under a bridge, still wearing the tuxedo, talking and laughing to a few homeless people. He said, "Mom, I made mistakes today, and I did not want to be around people who would judge me." Adam's life was a mix of brilliance and intensity. He could see music on piano, just like Beethoven. His childhood was curious but unsettled. He would cry inconsolably as a child. He would draw black circles on the paper till it tore, and he would have meltdowns with little trivial changes. He wanted to join in, but social life exhausted him. Whilst his peers played with his brother, he escaped towards the piano. In school, he was amazing, but he would lose things. He would zone out. And one day, he walked into the school wearing just one shoe. He was not a typical ADHD. He wasn't disruptive, but he was lost. When mother discussed it with the school nurse, she laughed and said, "Somebody who can memorize a 40-page Beethoven sonata cannot have a learning difficulty." And the cracks widened. As a teenager, he started experimenting with marijuana, and he was expelled from the musical school. However, he rebuilt his life in Italy and Germany. He went to the Hamburg Conservatory, started performing all over Europe, and spoke 6 different languages. Yet, he was socially isolated. He would not make eye contact, and he preferred his own company, which is absolutely fine. But then the pandemic came. He was locked in his dorm. He had a mental health breakdown. He was seen by mental health professionals, misdiagnosed with schizophrenia, bipolar affective disorder, personality disorder, depression, anxiety, without taking any collaborative history. His mother had traveled all the way from Canada to retrieve him because he had lost his passport 6 times in a year, and the authorities would not issue it again. He eventually moved back to Canada. His dream collapsed to deep depression. He was eventually diagnosed with ADHD, but he was not medicated. He could not keep any jobs. He started self-medicating, and that spiraled into using hardcore drugs. He was eventually made homeless, still loved, still wanting help, but the society saw him as an addict. He was invisible. His whole life has been a contradiction of perfectionistic yet chaotic. He feared life more than death. And once his mother asked, I said, Adam, why do you use drugs? And he replied, Mom, normal people fear death. People like us, we use drugs because we fear life. On March 11, 2024, Adam Booker, a 27-year-old music prodigy, died of an overdose. 15 months later, his mother discovered the concept of AuDHD, and it all made sense to her. Undiagnosed AuDHD and untreated AuDHD devastated the family, and it resulted in the loss of a brilliant mind. People like Adam may struggle to live in this world which is not built for them, but they enrich it beyond measure. And that is why naming AuDHD is so important. Language gives people framework, the framework which communicates to people that I am not incapable, I am not inept, I am AuDHD. For a clinician, it means assessing a whole person rather than jumping them between services. For employers, it means providing adjustments so that the AuDHD strengths thrive. For educational institute, it means seeing inconsistency as neurology and not attitude. For researchers, it means finally seeing the interaction and not excluding it. For society, it means letting go of the binaries and see the mind as it is, whole and complex. AuDHD is not an acronym. It is a way to give back dignity to people who have lived in shame. So, what next? A choice to either shove those people back in boxes where they do not belong or fit in, or embrace AuDHD as a new paradigm to honor complexity. Every acronym, every diagnosis has a human story. Like the child who came to me and asked, does that mean I'm not bad? For the father who said, I finally can see and understand my son. For the adult who said, I'm not inconsistent, I am AuDHD. AuDHD is not the end of a dialogue. It's the start of a movement that refuses to ignore the intersection. The movement who gives rise to a new story of hope, belonging, and wholeness. A story that tells that we will not split what nature joined. A story in which the world becomes not only more inclusive, but more human as well. Thank you very much.